I've clicked onto the Global Tropical Overview for June the 6th, 2023. As is always the case in these videos, the thoughts expressed here are mine alone, and if you're looking to make decisions ahead of any tropical cyclone, look towards your local weather office and official Tropical Cyclone Warning Center. They're going to have the best information here. I just give a big picture view of what's going on across the tropics. So across the tropics today, we have several items we're going to touch on. We're going to start briefly in the North Atlantic, as we do have a system to watch in a bit of an unusual spot this time of year. We've looking towards the Azores here in the northeastern Atlantic. You'd typically be looking towards the Gulf of Mexico or off the southeast coast of the US, but we do have a small chance of some subtropical type formation near the Azores. You can see that large extratropical low there off the coast of the Azores and off the coast of Portugal. Now, this system is not really expected to transition into a subtropical cyclone. The National Hurricane Center gives this system about a 10% chance of doing so within the next several days. You can see that there on their outlook. Main reason I'm touching on this is because the system could bring some significant impacts to the Azores, including heavy rainfall, strong winds, and higher surf, regardless of development there. And that could be a significant system and could certainly disrupt anyone there in the Azores for early June. Now we're going to move quickly into the West Pacific, where we have a few systems to monitor. We're mainly going to be talking about Invest 98W here in the open tropical West Pacific, but there is Invest 99W here in the South China Sea. This is a very broad system, and it's very close to land. You can see it's very close to coming towards Hainan and China. And this system really is not expected to develop. It could acquire some tropical characteristics before it makes landfall, but in general, not expecting any significant development out of that. But 98W could be a different story. We are seeing more signs that this system could become our next tropical cyclone in the West Pacific, possibly our next typhoon. And I know a lot of those in, say, the Mariana Islands and Guam and the Philippines are probably looking at this and thinking, is this going to come our way? The good news is for the Mariana Islands, we're not expecting the system to really come your way. It's already well west of you, and the steering flow is going to continue keeping this on a general northwestward direction. In the Philippines, it's not an imminent threat, but it is certainly something to monitor as the system comes towards the northwest. Now, overall, conditions are favorable for this system. You can see the oceanic temperatures are pretty warm here, even after Mawar's passage. You can see 29, 30 degrees Celsius, and that's mainly a factor of these waters being very deep, and they're always this deep this time of year in the Philippine Sea. Now, here's the European model, 500 millibar flow, and you can see there are a few features that we've got on this map. We've got a subtropical ridge here. This was actually in place when Mawar was going east of Japan, so it is still in place, and this is what's generally going to keep it tracking towards the northwest over the next several days. Now, alongside that, we've got this trough digging in here over portions of North and South Korea and China. Now, most of the model solutions that we've seen are keeping this general pattern in lock as the system comes towards the northwest, and this eventually comes out into the storm recurving towards the northeast, going in between this ridge and this trough as they sort of have a funneling effect, carrying this storm out to sea. Now, it's certainly looking more and more likely that is going to be the case. We are getting more closer in time to this actually happening, but it is certainly something for the Philippines to watch. We're not expecting the system node to come your way. This pattern typically, from what I'm looking at here, it just looks like this pattern will favor a recurvature more than a system coming towards the Philippines. But you can see the European is a solution where it is a bit further west in comparison to the GFS. And in this, you could get some impacts away from the system. You can see this is a fairly broad low. That's why it is taking its time to develop rather than developing rapidly. And you can see some rainfall extending even closer to the Mariana Islands, despite the center of circulation appearing to be well west of those islands. So you could still see some adverse impacts, especially along coastal Luzon and into the central Philippines. But in general, we're not expecting any big impacts out of there like we did get with Mawar. I guess it could be similar in a way to Mawar in the Philippines, because we didn't get a direct hit there in the Philippines. We got more of a brushing blow, but I wouldn't expect anything big, but you certainly could have some higher surf impacts and maybe some shower thunderstorm activity come there if you're in the Philippines as the system stays east. Now we're going to move on to the main topic of this video, and this is Invest 92A in the Arabian Sea. And this is Meteosat imagery, so it's not going to be the best in the world, but we can certainly tell what's going on here. If I pause it at the end here, what we can see is there is a good chunk of convection here sustaining over a likely closed low-level circulation here. This is likely a tropical cyclone by now, but the JTWC nor the IMD have designated as one, but they will certainly do so in due time. We know the center is likely closed because we got a couple high and ASCAT passes earlier in the day. I tried to get those for you, but my FNMOC page is not working right now. But we did get a pass earlier showing that that center was pretty well closed. Winds may have not been the strongest across the entire region of that closed low, but it was closed, and we have seen a lot of thunderstorm activity become well more organized over that center. And all those indications are that this system is likely a tropical cyclone by now. And this system does have an unusually favorable environment for this time of year in the Arabian Sea. Typically around this time of year, we have the monsoon season starting here in the Indian Ocean. But this time of year, it is a bit delayed, so we have more favorable conditions. This is a 200 millibar wind flow off of the GFS, and this just shows you how favorable this environment is. Here's 92A there on the model, and you can see we've got very divergent flow aloft, allowing for good poleward and equatorward outflow channels to open up once this system really starts to get going. And alongside that, sea surface temperatures are very warm. I would get the sea surface temperature plotted here, but it does not work. But sea surface temperatures here are generally 30 degrees Celsius plus, even some pockets possibly up to 32 degrees Celsius. So this very warm. And alongside the atmospheric conditions, this system will likely have no problem intensifying, assuming internal structure issues stay at bay. Now, this system is not expected to come towards India. I know typically we look towards systems coming towards India and the Arabian Sea, especially this time of year. But in general, we're expecting the system to stay out in the middle of the Arabian Sea, at least for the next several days. And if we look at the 500 millibar flow from the GFS and European, this is several days out now. This is a 6-day point on the GFS. And I'm showing this because we have this ridge here over portions of Europe and Asia. And this ridge is going to be generally in place for the entire duration of 92A's track. And this does play a big role into potential impacts that we could see. There's a lot of uncertainty now on where the system could eventually go. And really, my main messages here would be for those in India and Pakistan and Oman, particularly in Pakistan and Oman, I would monitor this system as it makes its way towards the north. We are, of course, several days out from the system coming this far north. This is a GFS 6 days out from coming this far north, but we could certainly see some issues. Now, due to this ridge, we're not really expecting this system to make a hard right into India. That is just not a scenario that I would see that is all too likely in a scenario like this, because this ridge is going to try and pull it more westwards. And you can see it there on the modeling. GFS is pulling this towards Oman. And you can also see a similar picture on the European with this ridge here trying to pull this storm towards Oman. Now, at this point, once it gets far enough north, we start to see a significant shearing take place in throughout the entire troposphere. You can see at the surface by this time on the model on the GFS, we've got some stronger winds at the surface, mainly westerly. But if you go up into the mid and upper levels, we have stronger easterly flow aloft. This is a very strong shearing, and you can see that taking shape there. The mean shear between 850 millibars, which is about here, 200 millibars in the upper levels, is about 33 knots. And it may even be stronger than that when you consider the surface flow there, with that flow trying to push the storm towards the east. Generally, in this scenario, you would expect that this shear would be able to disrupt the system, possibly tilt the core at an angle, which is unfavorable for the system to develop, or intensify further, rather, and you would expect weakening. Now, the GFS does show some slight weakening, but it doesn't really weaken it too much. It still has it coming into Oman or Oman, sorry, as a strong system. Now, the European is a different scenario. It still shows that strong shear there. You can see 30 to 40 knot shear there as the system comes further north. But if you pay attention to the intensity, you can tell just how strong the system is on the GFS and European. You can see the GFS at this time, it's pretty strong still on the GFS, while on the European, it's much weaker. Now, I should note the European stalls the system in the northern Arabian Sea for quite a long time. You notice this is 204 hours out. This is a long time out, over 7 days, but it is something that impacts the track. If we get a scenario like the GFS depicts here, we certainly could see the system come towards Oman with this flow, because you have those stronger thunderstorms reaching higher up into the troposphere, and they would be more likely to fill this flow in the mid to upper levels. Now, if you get a weakening storm like the European shows, you would be more likely to get the system to track or really stall in the Arabian Sea and then try and come towards the east, or generally northeast, because it would then try to follow the low-level flow as a weaker system. And eventually the GFS does have the system following that low-level flow, because it does eventually make landfall no more on the run, and then it weakens down and follows that flow. Now, in a scenario like this, given the shear that we have in place, I'd be more inclined to follow the European here, with showing that weakening trend as it comes into the northern Arabian Sea. Now, is it certainly possible that the system comes towards Oman? It is possible. Other than the shear, of course, other conditions do look fairly favorable. You can even see the GFS differs a bit from the European on relative humidity. It still has pretty good relative humidity there. But given that shear, I'd be more inclined to say that the European would be right here. And for those in maybe Pakistan and Western India that might be looking here and thinking this system's going to come towards you, this would likely be a weaker system because it would be heavily sheared at this point. And the reason it would be moving east at that point is because it's weakened so much it started to follow that low-level flow. So there's a lot of uncertainty here, and really only time will tell. We'll have to see exactly how the system plays out. But for those in India, in Pakistan, and Oman, it would definitely not hurt to watch the system as it comes north. The good news is we have time here. This system is going to be meandering in the Arabian Sea, possibly for the next week before it impacts any land areas. So we have time to watch this. And of course, stay tuned to your local weather office and the Indian Meteorological Department. They're going to have the latest official forecasts on this system as it continues to develop and strengthen in the Arabian Sea. That is all that we've got to talk about for today. I'll have further videos on the 98W in the West Pacific and 92A in the Arabian Sea throughout this week and even into next week as these systems develop. But thank you all for watching, and that's it for now.